Hello and welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Rakos and today I will explain how you can play the game First Rat. The game is for up to 5 players, it has a solo mode and is played in about an hour and a half. In the game, players control a team of mice trying to conquer the universe. So put on your spacesuit and let's start. The rats in the old junkyard have gone mad, dreaming of traveling to the moon using space rockets made of junk. Players guide their team on a junkyard track offering various junk resources. Some of the track's bonuses allow players to operate in the burrow. There, players will manage to gain additional bonuses, score victory points, but also raise additional mice to contribute to the cause. By collecting specific sets of junk, players will be creating space rocket parts, which is the main source of victory points. Players will also use cheese as money to buy various items from shops and gain significant advantages. The game ends after a player reaches the launch pad with all 4 mice or places the 8th scoring cube on the board. At that point, the player with the most victory points achieves a giant leap for ratkind and wins in First Rat. First, place the board in the middle of the table. Create supplies with the building materials next to the board. You have vinegar bottles, tin cans, baking soda and calculators. Also create supplies of cheese, molded cheese and awards. Cheese comes in denominations of 1 and 3 pieces of cheese. Next, create a supply of energy drinks according to the number of players. In a 3 players example, you will need 4 energy drinks which are placed in Zippy the Frog's booth. Remaining tokens are removed from the game. After you shuffle the 10 bottle caps, randomly choose 6 of them and place them facing upwards in the Madcap Crowd's booth. Remaining tokens are removed from the game. Shuffle the 10 backpacks and then randomly choose a number of tokens depending on the number of players. For 3 players, you will need 6 tokens, place them facing upwards in Harry Hamster's booth. Remove remaining tokens from the game. Next, create a supply of comics. If this is your first game, remove the 4 Super Rat tokens and simply flip the rest 6 tokens facing upwards. If you are more experienced, use all comics tokens, randomly choose 6 to place in a face-up supply, and remove the rest of the tiles from the game. If any yellow Super Rat comics are revealed, keep the corresponding Super Rat figures somewhere near. Players then select one of the colors and take the player aid and the components of the corresponding color. Players use 8 score markers and place another 2 aside for now. Players place 2 of their rats in the start space on the junkyard path, and the other 2 are placed in the nursery in the middle of the rat's burrow. Players also place their rat burrow marker in the start space of the rat burrow track, and their light string marker in the start space of the light string. On the board you will find 8 different tracks. If you are playing with less than 5 players, you will use neutral color components to block some spaces as indicated by these symbols on the track. If you are playing with 1 to 4 players, use a cube to block the indicated space. And if it's a 1 or 2 players game, you will use another cube to block the second space as well. Do the same for all tracks, but in the rattronauts track, use neutral rat markers to block applicable spaces. Now choose a player at random to be the starting player who takes the starting player token and 1 cheese from the supply. Then, moving clockwise, the next 2 players will start the game with 2 cheese. And if there were a 4th and a 5th player, these players would start with 3 cheese. The game is now ready to start. If you're still watching this video and like this kind of content, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done already and hit that bell button so you get notified of all our future videos. I would be deeply grateful if you did, as this is the only way for this channel to grow. In the game, players take turns starting with the first player and continuing clockwise. On their turn, players first move 1 or 2 of their rats along this track, and then gain the rewards depicted on the spaces they've landed. Then, if you have landed in the spaces that I show you in the graphics, you may interact with the 3 shops and gain specific bonuses. In the last part of their turn, players may spend building materials or cheese to place their scoring markers to corresponding tracks and thus buy victory points for the end of the game. Basically, what you need to do in the game is to place your cubes in these tracks, because you'll get points at the end of the game for every one of your cubes. You also gain points by moving your rats to the end of this track. Now let's explain a player's turn in greater detail. First, you move one or two of your rats along this track. You either move one of your rats up to 5 spaces or two of your rats up to 3 spaces, and both of the rats must land on same color spaces. There are also some shortcuts along the junkyard track that you can take to move faster. In order to use these shortcuts, you must spend the depicted type of resource. So the green player could move this rat once here, then spend 1 calculator and move 2, 3, spend a vinegar bottle and make a 4th step here, and then maybe stop. All spent resources move back to the general supply. Very important rule, you may never have more than one of your rats in the same space, but you can move to spaces with other players' rats. However, when you do so, you must pay each other player in that space 1 cheese from your supply. So the orange player must pay 2 cheese to the blue player and 1 cheese to the green player for this absolutely valid double move. If you cannot afford to pay the cost, first you spend as much as you can, and then you take 1 molded cheese and 3 normal cheese from the supply, and you continue paying your debt. If you still don't have enough cheese, then you repeat the process. You can never spend molded cheese, and for each token you have at the end of the game, you will lose 2 victory points. After you end your movement and have paid your debt, if applicable, then you collect the rewards depicted on the spaces you've landed. So here the orange player will gain 1 vinegar bottle and a baking soda. Players keep the gained rewards in their personal supply, and there is absolutely no limit in how many you can have. Important, you only gain rewards from your rats that have moved during your turn. Now let's see all the different types of rewards. Yellow spaces give you cheese, 1 for every cheese depicted. Orange and green spaces give you building materials, which are vital to create space pods and gain points. Apple spaces award you with moves for your burrow marker. So if I landed here, I would gain 2 moves for my burrow marker. Burrow markers move circularly according to the arrows depicted on every space. What is important in the burrow is these 3 spaces. Whenever you reach or pass through them, you immediately trigger the bonus depicted in the area next to it. When you pass through that space, you take 1 available comic token from the ones we placed next to the board. I will explain some of those in a bit. If you pass through that space, then you immediately raise 1 of your rats in the nursery and place it at the beginning of the junkyard track to start the journey. Finally, if your burrow marker moves through that space, you place 1 of your cubes to the leftmost empty space in this track, and you will gain the victory points depicted above the space at the end of the game. Of course, you can trigger these bonuses multiple times, provided there are enough comics or rats of your color in the nursery. The last space of all tracks can hold any number of cubes. Finally, we're left with the blue spaces. For each light bulb depicted, you move your light string marker 1 space in the light string track. This is very important because all junkyard spaces next to your string marker and further behind gain +1 to their yield. So if, for example, the orange player in a future turn moved this rat to this space would yield 2 light string moves and not 1. And if they moved here, they would gain 2 baking sodas instead of 1. Finally, whenever your light string marker passes through one of these checkpoints, you immediately place 1 of your cubes in the leftmost empty space of this track. The last space of the junkyard track is more special. When you reach that space, you either gain 1 award from the supply, which will count for 3 victory points at the end of the game, or you can raise 1 of your rats from the nursery, if possible. After that, you place your rat in the leftmost empty space of this track. This will score you victory points at the end of the game. Finally, in case you want to do a double movement, this last space can be of any color. So I can make it a white so that I move my other rat here and also move my burrow marker 4 times. After you've moved your rats and resolved the spaces where you've landed, if any of your move rats have landed in one of these 3 spaces, you may interact with the shop next to them. If you choose to interact with the shop, you have 2 options. Either to spend the depicted amount of cheese and buy one available token, or you can steal one of the tokens and move your pawn to the beginning of the junkyard track. Important, you can never take molded cheese in order to afford to buy a token from any shop. All bonuses gained from shops are very important. I will explain them in a little bit. In the last part of your turn, you can spend any number of your resources to create rocket parts and place cubes in these tracks, and also to donate cheese and add scoring cubes in this track. If you spend 1 tin can and 2 calculators, you create 1 cockpit. With 2 tin cans and 3 baking sodas, you construct a cargo bay. And with 2 baking sodas and 5 vinegar bottles, you create a thruster. In addition, every time you create a triplet of a cockpit, a cargo bay and a thruster, you have completed a rocket, and you also add 1 cube in the top track. Also, for each set of 10 cheese you can spend, you place 1 scoring cube in this track. Now let's explain some of the comic token bonuses. If you have this token, you never spend cheese when you end your movement in a space with other players. If you have this token, then orange and green spaces are regarded to be the same color. If you have this token, you can pass through green tube shortcuts without paying the cost. With this comic, you gain a discount of 1 resource whenever you're constructing rocket parts. Yellow comics relate to super rats. When you take one of these, you take the corresponding super rat token and place it on one of your rats, and from now on, this rat gains all the bonuses depicted in the corresponding comic. For example, Lola the rat gains +2 to her movement. So if you move only Lola, she can move up to 7 spaces, and if you move her along with another one of your rats, she can move up to 5 spaces. And Arnold Rattenegger gains +1 to the award of any space that he stops. The backpacks you can buy from this shop grant you an ongoing increase in the yield that corresponds to specific colored spaces in total. So if, for example, I had this backpack and I just stopped to these 2 spaces, the backpack will grant me either a calculator or a tin can in addition to my normal yield. The energy drink you can buy from this shop can be used only once, and it will double the full award yield of that turn. Example: the orange player has all of these assets. The player first moves Rattlenecker to this space and gains 3 bulbs +1 for Arnold Rattenegger, and moves the second rat to this space for another 2 bulbs plus another one because the space is behind the light string marker. So we're up to 7 bulbs, plus another 2 because of the backpack, 9 bulbs. If I spend this energy drink, I can move 18 spaces with my light string marker. After you use an energy drink, keep it next to your play area facing downwards. The caps you can buy from the Crow shop are very important because at the end of the game, they score the depicted amount of victory points for every cube you have in the corresponding scoring track. The game's end is triggered in 2 ways. One is when all 4 rats of a player reach the launch pad. The other one is when one player places their 8th scoring marker in the tracks. However, players can still use the additional 2 cubes they separated during setup. After the game's end is triggered, you need to finish the player turn round so that all players have had equal number of turns in the game. So if the game's end was triggered by the orange player, the green and then the blue player take their last turn. If, however, the game's end was triggered by the blue player, the game would end immediately after that player's turn. In scoring, players gain the victory points depicted in all the spaces they acquired in the 8 scoring tracks. Then they add any victory points awarded from the cups they have bought, plus 3 points for every award token they have, and minus 2 victory points for each molded cheese they have. This here is the score for the orange player. The player with the most victory points wins the game. If there is a tie, then the player with the most rats in this track wins the tie. If the tie still exists, all players share their victory. And that were the rules of the game First Rat. If you like our videos and want to see more videos like that, please subscribe to Peaky Boardgamer YouTube channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.